We are live now.
We are live.
Hello.
Hi. We were just talking about Anna's travel.
Yes, so I was at Europeans in person this week, and I had I left the US in a snowstorm and got delayed and had to go via routes that I was not supposed to go and stay in places I wasn't supposed to stay, but finally got there. And then because I'm going to the Music on Ice show in Switzerland next weekend, I'm needed staying in Europe and staying in Poland in between. And so I was taking a bus with my friend from Kaunas to, well, it was supposed to be Kaunas to Warsaw, and then we were going to take a train from Warsaw to Gdansk, where she lives. We got stuck in the snow on the road in random bit of rural Poland. Almost got in an accident. Our bus was going sideways for a minute. We missed our train. We thought for a minute that we could get a plane from Warsaw to Gdansk. We bought plane tickets, went to the airport, just missed checking in, had to stay overnight in Warsaw, spent the night, or 4 hours worth of the night, got a train then the next morning at 5 a.m. and made it because she had to go back to work. So it was, it was an adventure. I feel like I had now, everyone was complaining about, my friends were all saying that, oh yeah, you're going to Poland, but you don't really need to go to Warsaw. It's not really worth seeing. And I was like, oh, I'm sure there's something worth seeing. But now that I've had this experience, I feel like I hate Warsaw. So
Oh no.
I was blaming it for the weather, but it was everything that could go wrong did go wrong. But now I'm in Krakow, and in a very nice hostel, and feeling much more fondly toward Poland in general once I had gotten some sleep and not stuck on a bus.
Oh my goodness.
Hi, Laura. I was about to say to all of our Polish viewers, Poland is beautiful. Beautiful. Amazing.
I love Poland. I'm enjoying it so much. Everything I've had to eat has been amazing. I really liked Gdansk. I went to the World War II museum, and it was super interesting, and walked all around, and Krakow is beautiful. And I'm sure that Warsaw also has really nice parts. It's the part where we were stuck trying to figure out how to get from a train station to a bus station, and walking down an alley in a snowstorm was not so much fun. So I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone from Warsaw, but that part was not so fun.
No, how long is the bus ride?
It was supposed to be 6 hours from Kaunas to Warsaw, but it ended up being more like 8.
That's okay.
But my friend who was going directly from Kaunas to Krakow had more like a 14-hour bus ride.
Oh.
In the snow, also delayed all of the adventures. So I think the moral of the story has been, don't take buses in the winter when it might snow, because this has now happened to me in 2 different countries that this has caused problems. So, oh, hi, Claudia. Yes, I know. All of my ongoing adventures in I feel bad complaining about all of this because I'm here, I'm so lucky I got to, go to Europeans and to take this amazing 2 weeks to travel. And mostly I'm having a great time, but there have definitely been some misadventures along the way.
Oh dear.
So we have a guest with us.
Yes. Thank you very much for having me and inviting me to join you. It's an absolute pleasure.
So, Louise, I feel like we should introduce you because I think some people will know you, but not everyone, or at least not, put a face to the name. So Louise is a competitive ice dancer, British champion, and commentates for, say, Eurosport and Discovery Plus. Do I have that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay. And so you were commentating on Europeans.
Yes.
How was that for you?
It was great. So I actually did it from a studio via a link. So I didn't have the pleasure of being there in person. But yeah, it's very cool in a sense, because it's like we're there, really. We're very tunnel vision on the screens. We have different views, and yeah, it's always a privilege for me to be able to share my knowledge and watch so much of it in a concentrated fashion like that. I love it.
That's great. And could you feel the kind of energy of the crowd and how unusual it was from remotely? I guess that's sort of a question for everyone, because I think when I watched back some videos, I was like, okay, that was cool, but it, like in the building, it had so much of a different impact.
So I suppose the best way to relate it really was that I don't think there's anything that really could replace being there in person to feel that kind of electricity. However, I did Europeans in Sheffield in 2012, so obviously at home for me. So watching the Lithuanian skaters really brought back fond memories, because I just remember how overwhelming it was to be able to skate at home, and it was really quite a big deal for the UK as well. So whilst I perhaps didn't feel the same energy and electricity as you would have done there, I did, it did bring back fond memories, and I have experienced that before. So yeah, but it looked amazing. And I got Chris Howarth, who was commentating with the ISU, who I very often work with, was sending me videos, and we were on the phone several times a day. So he was saying to me, "It's amazing. You're really missing out," which of course helps. Thanks. Yeah, no, it was quite something, wasn't it? Really fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could
Barry
really
was saying
tell.
best Euros ever. So I'm just reading the comment real quick.
Yeah.
The ice dance, free dance atmosphere was off the chain. The crowd was so generous to everyone.
Yeah, you could really tell, especially with the Lithuanian teams, like the crowd would not shut up before they were due to skate. They would just keep clapping.
Yeah,
And it's like,
I read,
okay, people need to skate, let's just keep clapping.
I think it was Alison that said we didn't even know if we'd finished at the right time with the music, because we could barely hear the music. So, it must have just been amazing for them. I would think it wouldn't have mattered at that point, honestly, because it was just, if they couldn't hear, then the judges probably couldn't hear either.
Yeah. There were times when I'm like, wow, this crowd is like finding ways to clap along to like classical music that doesn't even have a beat. They were like, but the things that were the most impressive were the fact it was this big arena and that they actually had people sitting all the way up to the top, and it made such a difference. Like there was this sense that there was like crowd up above your eye level. Like it just somehow created this like it was like surround sound
Atmosphere. Yeah.
So what do you think was the difference? I mean, that part, of course, that the audience was like, but was there like anything else, like the audience or the music they were playing, or?
Yeah, they had, so, I think that this is kind of, I talked to a lot of people about like, okay, so why is this European so different? Like, what did this organizing committee do that made it different or whatever about it? And there were, I think, like for sometimes good reasons and sometimes bad impacts. Like this was a team that actually didn't really come from this figure skating world. Like a lot of the people in the organizing committee mostly do like other sports or like other entertainment events. And that meant that like, I think sometimes that was frustrating for the people who knew how things had to go for figure skating, like working with these people who were like, well, but why? Like we don't have to do it that way. But I think the good side of that was that they brought in like stuff that works in other sporting events, like to have like lots of audience interaction. There was like a DJ playing like pump up music and getting people to sing along and getting people to like play games basically. They had like cards to hold up for the colors of the Lithuanian flag. They had like all of this stuff. So, and at the beginning of the week when the crowds were smaller, it was like, wow, this is really awkward and way too loud and way too intense. And like, can we just chill, please? But as the week went on and as the crowd started getting bigger, it was like, oh, wow, this is actually really cool. And like, I completely drank the Kool-Aid. I was like, I wish I knew how to sing along to these songs in Lithuanian. It was, so there was like a great feeling. And by the time that the gala was also sold out, and so by the time that finished, where they had like the fire eaters, it was really cool. It was, the skaters looked so freaked out because they were basically told, just skate in this little circle, and as long as you stay here, you'll be safe. And I could see them in practice going, what? But it was very cool. And like the crowd didn't want to leave. People were like, we just want to stay and party, basically.
Yeah. I mean, Claudia is saying I was blown away by the audience. Atmosphere was nothing like I've ever experienced before. And then, by the way, I'm reading these out loud because we are also putting this up as a podcast. So, and then Miriam is saying it was louder than when I saw PC. I mean, in Montpellier, it was insane. And what I want to say. Oh, by the way, I do not know why these buttons are showing up. Is this a new feature I haven't been aware of? Why these?
This hasn't been happening before today. I don't know where the thumbs up have come from. It's very.
We don't know what it is. I'm excited to see what else is happening.
That's not something you've missed while you've been away. That's a new thing.
Okay. Yeah. Should we start the commentary maybe?
Yeah.
I think our first. Anybody wants to introduce the pairs winners?
Sure. So the pairs winner was Lucrezia Beccari, Matteo Guarise. Silver was Anastasia Medalkina and Luca Barilava, and bronze was Rebecca Ghilardi and Filippo Ambrosini. So I just want to say before we talk about the people, since continuing on, this was the most people I've ever seen for a pairs event. Also, it wasn't as full as ice dance, but suddenly we're like, wait, why are there more people for pairs than there are for men? Like, what is happening? Do Lithuanians love pairs? And it turns out that like is basically spillover effect. Like maybe some people didn't know the difference between pairs and ice dance, and they thought they were coming for the ice dance, but they were still excited for the pairs. So it was actually really nice to see a pairs competition that had a really strong crowd that was excited for it.
And it seemed like I think this was probably, in my opinion, the most competitive of all the discipline events, because you didn't really know who was going to win. Like there could have been 6 or 7 teams that made onto this podium and could have won.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that comment about Filippo and Rebecca. Like they're favorites of mine, so I'm a little biased, but I was so happy for them. And the crowd actually booed their scores for the short program.
Yes, they did.
Because they were so low?
Yeah.
Because they probably thought they should have been in first, and they weren't. And I may agree that the team that were in first off the short program maybe were a bit inflated in their scores.
Yeah, I think they were third on the program component score, though, weren't they? And then it was the levels that was a bit off. So I congratulated their coach, Daniel Aggiano, and he straight away was like, the levels were wrong. Okay, Daniel, but you know, it's okay. It's not over yet. But yeah. So.
Yeah.
Claudia is saying so sad for Conti and Machi not even making the podium.
Yeah, this was not their event. Like, it was too big of a mountain to climb after the hole they dug themselves into in the short program. Just kind of everything was kind of off. And they said there was an issue with their music. It felt like their timing was wrong from the off. So they just they completely kind of lost themselves in the program. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who makes the world's team, because obviously only 2 of the 3 Italian teams here are going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they have a criteria that they're supposed to be going by, but I can't remember what it was. I know that after Italian nationals that there was only 1 point separating Beccari Guarise and Ghilardi Ambrosini, but I think that Conti Machi were ahead of them both. So then,
Conti Machi scored over 200 in several events, so I think they might still be in the lead, but I don't know if they're going to go by that criteria or not.
Yeah.
Niccolo
was really mad. By the way, if I completely agree about the program, it doesn't have the same magic it had last year.
It's annoyed me since the off season. I cannot fathom why you would keep that free skate after the success you had with it last year. Everyone has seen it. I don't know why you would keep it. But yeah.
Yeah.
What were you saying about who was mad?
So Niccolo Machi, when I talked to the team after their free skate, he was like, this isn't our Europeans, this isn't our season. He was like, I want to get on the plane right now and I don't care. And someone's like, well, there's still the gala. And he's like, we're not going to the gala. Like he was very, very angry, and just angry, not just angry at himself, and at the situation. Like it wasn't like he thought they were wrongly scored or anything. He was just like really frustrated. And Sarah was trying to be like, okay, but the season's not over and we still have Worlds. And so it was interesting seeing their dynamic. And it made me wonder, like, with that kind of anger, you can either turn it into like motivation, or I worry that it was a little bit like, oh, this season is a wash, it's a waste. Like, we want it to be over already and, you know, and start fresh. So I'm really curious if they do go to Worlds, how they get their energy back to try to not feel like, you know, they're
Yeah,
stuck.
it probably felt like they were like turning a corner when they came second at the Grand Prix final, and maybe they should have actually won the Grand Prix final. I do think they were maybe a little bit undermarked. But then for Sarah to get ill over nationals and be in bed rest for like something like 4 or 5 days, and then have to get back into training for this, and then for everything to kind of go wrong here, it's kind of like one step forward, 2 steps back kind of thing.
Yeah. What did you all think about I feel like it was such a surprise to see the mistakes from the Germans, from Minerva and Minerva and Nikita.
I feel like it will benefit them in the long run because they've had such a strong season and they haven't really faltered at all. I feel like they'll learn a lot from the things that went wrong for them here, and hopefully they'll do better at Worlds. But like, it's obviously disappointing for them. I know Minerva was ill over the Christmas break as well, and still did nationals even though she was ill. But yeah, things are going to go wrong sometimes, so you're not going to win everything.
Yeah,
I think it's all character building, and they came out and they've just been so successful all season. And I think when you have expectations of results and you're relatively unbeaten, so to speak, it then becomes like a pressure that you don't want to spoil that run either. So even the strongest characters, if you just get that little demon, and let's be honest, we saw a few of those demons creeping across every section, I think it can really affect you. And they didn't make mistakes. It wasn't necessarily a scandal that they were to drop. It's just how it goes, So, but I would think that this a blip, and they're clearly a strong team, so they'll use it for the right energy to push us, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. I think I'll be interested to see how they come back here, and I'm seeing both them and Annika and Robert at the Ace show that I'm going to, and so I'm kind of hoping I'll get a chance to talk to them there, because I think for both of them, it's like, obviously this was frustrating in different ways, but like how they kind of move on from here to the rest of their season. For Annika and Robert, it was really interesting to see, like, Robert was in so much pain earlier this season, and he's really gotten healthy, and he was feeling like pretty happy with how they did, but because he was, knowing that they weren't going to be able to be at their best. And I think for Annika, it was much harder because she was feeling like she had been practicing a lot on her own. Her solo jumps were going really well, and then they didn't happen there. So I think it was that feeling of, for her, it was like, well, I should be the one having the easy time. But I think it's still disruptive to training, even if they just haven't done as many run throughs. That, doing that in the competition is still different.
Yeah, and you're two halves of a whole at the end of the day. So if one of you is down or is injured, it does affect the other one of you. And he maybe was just like, I've got a point to prove, and so he excelled, and she carried the baggage a little bit. So it's just one of those things. But I don't doubt they'll come back stronger. They're a great team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so proud of him getting all the lifts, just because, like, obviously that's the thing they haven't been able to do, and they haven't been able to train those until very recently. But I think it's just a mental block for Annika.
Oh no.
Yeah.
You're stuck, Louise. She will be back in a second. Yeah, I was surprised to see this comment. This will be interesting. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. You were just stuck. And now you're back.
Yes.
Good.
I'm back.
This will be interesting because usually we do a live stream for World's preview. So it will be interesting to ask you guys who are your top 3. Because
Yeah.
it feels impossible.
I think this really shook it up too, because you've got teams that at the start of the season seemed really strong, like Deanna and Max, and then they're struggling some, and then we would have expected Kantimachi to be strong and the Japanese to be strong, and they're not, there, but then we've got other teams like coming up. So I agree. I think there's at least 9 or 10 even teams that could be on the podium, and that's really exciting. I just think, like, especially thinking about how Paris was seeming kind of weak, that now we've got, so many strong teams. And I was really encouraged to see, like, the strength of some of the teams that are coming up. Like, I got to talk to the Polish team here a bit, and I'm really impressed with how much they've improved. And they seem like they've got a great attitude. They're both fun people, and just like that's really fun to see. Like, I think there's also, we can talk about maybe the top 6 teams here as being like those that were the podium contenders, but there's a group under them that are not as far behind as they were. So I don't know. I think it's really interesting to see that the field is getting deeper. And I was also, I have to say, really proud of Anna and Luke, the British team, who did really well in their short program, had a rough free skate, but they were in the warm-up group with the 3 medalists from Europeans last year, and they looked like they belonged there. And it was a really cool way to see, how they've also really improved.
Yeah, there's a lot of great things happening with British skating. I'm really proud to be able to say that. But yeah, you're right. I think both pair teams are quite strong. I think Anna and Luke for sure have the edge at the moment. They just, if you like see them, they're so in shape as well. In terms of their physical ability. Anna, she posts loads of stuff on Instagram. They've been working with Stacey Kemp and David King, if you remember them from around a decade ago, as well as a British pair team. And they're just very, very on it. And I thought, if you think a season back, or even to Skate America when we saw them as well, because they had a little bit of a rough time there, the improvement, particularly on the short, they completely held their own. The free, was a different story, and it was unfortunate. It was hard to watch, but lots of people that we didn't expect to make mistakes made mistakes on the free as well. So yeah, it's really great to see them hold their own up there inside that top 10, and I wouldn't say comfortably, because I think it's literally like an element one way or another could change the whole order, honestly. But yeah, they fought for it, and yeah, good for them. We'll see what the future brings. Hopefully, more and more progress.
Yeah, and when you've got teams, in some ways,
it's so impressive. I was going to say, it's so impressive how they've been able to rework their twist. Like the fact that it was by far their weakest element, like even a year ago, and now they are consistently getting positive GOEs on it. It's almost kind of like the other elements have kind of taken a step back, almost, that they finally got that one figured out. Maybe now that they can put it all together.
Yeah, I agree.
And we haven't talked about our top 2 here, but also, yes, let's thank you, Ellie, for sorry.
I wanted to put that up because
yes.
Yeah, I felt so bad for the Kovalevs.
Yeah. They were sick, or she was sick, I think, previously, and just was not, said she was feeling shaky going into it and everything. But yeah, it was really a shame.
Yeah, I think from what I heard, she was, clearly not okay after the fall. But it was more the fact that she was ill and weak, and the fall happened as a consequence of, because she's usually so strong, so solid, isn't she? And so I don't know what it was like to watch live, but I had my mic off, thankfully. But it was one of those, when I saw her go down, it didn't hurt, right? That was not a nice fall to watch, but I believe she was bruised, but needs to get well over anything else.
Yeah, it was. I think it was really. I'm glad that they withdrew. That was one of those, like, yes, this is the smart choice. But yeah, hopefully they will be healthy, and she'll be healthy the next time we see them. And I was going to say, we haven't talked about the gold and silver medalists yet. But, you know, and so part of me is like, I can't believe that the cats program won Europeans, but also like there's something that is like Europeans is like a little bit camp in the best of ways. Like this year, there's like a little bit of that like Eurovision, like I'm saying this as an American who was thinking that several times that if this competition and some of these things were happening in the US, I would be like, oh, that's tacky. I hate it. And I was like, no, but it's fun because it's like, and I think that like even though Cats is not European, like there's I'm stretching here, but there was something about it that I was like, this is a little bit ridiculous and a little bit camp, but kind of in the best of ways. And I'm glad that like I'm very happy for the team, and I'm happy for Matteo, who had many, many years worth of Europeans and many years worth of wearing kind of like funny unitard costumes. It felt like this was a completion of that journey.
I thought it was. I really liked the program, honestly, and I think it was Barbara Fuzzapoli who choreographed it as well, didn't she? And you know, she's gonna know how to do it well, right? So I really felt like you could see her influence in it. I really enjoyed it. I found it entertaining, and you know, we can hit this level in skating and in each of the categories where all the ladies go for a tango and all the dancers pick a lyrical track. And so, you know, to just do something that we all know, but we wouldn't expect them to pick, I was like, do you know what? It was time for a Cats, you know, and it was really entertaining. And I think it helped that they skated really well, because if they hadn't, we might have gone, ooh, you know, but I really loved it. And even the end, I mean, why wouldn't you do cat claws, you know? If you're going to do it, do it.
Yes. I know.
I've seen the potential in that program all season, and everyone else has been like, oh, the Cats program. I've been like, I think the Cats program has potential.
Yeah. Yes. I think I am more into it in theory than I am in practice, because every time I hear it, I remember that I dislike the music, but that's a me problem, not a them problem.
I think there are programs where you get used to the music during the seasons, and then there are programs where you're like, I can't hear the song anymore. I often wonder if the skaters feel the same. Like 6 months
so
into
about
it,
them saying
like,
they'll train the quad twist and quad cell. I'd have to see what it looks like first to really judge if I think that's a good idea. But I mean, I can see why they want to do it and why they want to bring that in to make themselves more competitive against the other teams in the field.
I didn't talk to them about it here, but I remember at last year's Europeans, Matteo talking about wanting this, and Lucrezia saying, yeah, and I really want to do the quads. And so it's interesting seeing like that ambition coming from both of them. But what Matteo was saying was that Lucrezia rotates really quickly, and that's the key to doing the quads safely, and particularly the quad throw, that they've really studied the technique that Megan Duhamel and Eric Radford used, where they have talked about being able to, you know, safely train quad throws by only doing a small number of repetitions each day and keeping the jump small, like not trying to make a giant like Chinese style pair throw out of it, but like have it be really fast rotation. And so I was impressed by, like, they seemed like they had a very intentional plan and theory for how to approach it. I think they did say that this is mostly going to be like an off-season plan for them to work on next, but I believe that they could do it, and yeah, why not?
Yeah, I also think as well that by training up like that their current content will improve. I mean, there is an element of risk to it. I think their strategy is on point with, you know, low repetition and all those things, because one bad fall and what's the point for everything else, honestly. But yeah, I think it can only help what they currently do, even if it's never achieved or ever goes into competition. And let's be honest, those Italian teams are really pushing through right now. So if you want to be the one selected going forwards and getting ready for pre-Olympic season, it's smart to put that out there. Just let's present that and say that's what we're doing, and everybody else goes, oh my gosh, It's true though, right?
Yeah.
I love how much they're pushing each other. I think it's a really cool thing to see those 3 teams and then the other Ice Lab teams all being, a couple of times that they were saying that, this competition doesn't feel so different because they're kind of competing every day. Like somebody goes out and does a clean run through. Well, you want to go do, so that they have some of that familiarity. And it seems like a very healthy competitive environment that they have.
Yeah, and I think it's just where we trained. So we were in Lyon before the Montreal school set up, before I am set up. And it does help you so much to be training with your competitors every day. It also teaches life lessons because, we were professional on the ice, but at weekends we would go and have a great time together, and then Monday came again and then we're back to work. And so I think it just taught us really good standards. And you have some of those teams in the Ice Lab actually, with Andre Hotorek, Annika Polini, Luca Lanotte, and so they have gone around and trained in different centers themselves and served their apprenticeship as coaches. And Andre in particular is very, very switched on, and I had the conversation with him at Skate America actually, and he said to me, you have to know to respect those who've been before us as well. We're doing a great thing there. I'm lucky I'm having the opportunity to work with these great teams, but I'm still learning from the people who've been there before me. And that level of respect as well, not to think he knows everything, I really think is serving him well, and he's drawing from people that have been there before him.
Yeah, definitely. And I've been very impressed with that whole school and their approach to things. And the Franca Bianconi is not actively coaching, is my understanding, because she's on the ISU Development Commission now. And so I think she had to step back from being like an active coach as part of that. She's not, I think she's probably, still there and around, but not, she's not listed as a coach for any of the teams at this point, or for Matteo Rizzo, who she was also on the team for. So I think, but they've grown the number of coaches there. And I'm actually, I had a short conversation with her because she was there also as a commentator for Rai, and so the Italian TV. And so she was, still around at Europeans, and I'm hoping to try to talk to her more about the Development Commission, because I think there's a lot of interesting things that they're doing about promoting pairs, but also, really trying to intentionally share expertise across different coaching schools and bring in people from federations that don't have that kind of support at this point and stuff. So anyway, it's interesting to see all of that. The other coach that was super prominent here that I think was kind of an interesting dynamic was Dmitry Savin, the Russian coach who has a school in Sochi, and both the Hungarian and the Dutch teams train there with him. But then he also works a lot with the teams that train in Berlin, with Minerva and Nikita, and then with the Polish team, mostly by video, I think. And then they were all going to come together for a camp before Worlds in Oberstdorf. And so it's interesting seeing okay, so despite the Russian ban, despite all of this, we're still seeing a very active camp of skaters that are all training with this coach, some of them training in Russia, some not, and all doing really well this year. And so that was I think I was less aware of that because they're not a school in one place the way Ice Lab is. But I think that's also sort of an interesting cluster of skaters to talk about, supporting and pushing each other.
No, that was a very good point. I just the silent.
I apologize
just
for the
happened.
distraction. My cat deciding to just like jump on my lap during that whole talk.
Just looking at, I mean, was it an idea to talk about it now? Or was it more like we can talk about it later?
Sorry, what are we talking about?
I didn't know if you want to open the discussion to talk about it now. Because you said that would be an interesting group of people to talk about.
Oh no, I was just I said what I wanted to say, but I'm glad to know that Lara, that there's an interview at Savin, because I think basically what I'm saying is that I'm curious about him, but I did not have any in-depth conversation at this competition.
No, I think it was a very interesting thing to point out.
He also works with one of the Canadian teams, I believe. So anyway, I think it's an interesting thing. So yes.
Just looking at the time, I was thinking like we can maybe highlight some of the other skaters we haven't mentioned. I don't know. I think we mentioned them briefly, but Miriam said Danilova and Tsiba were one of her highlights. The chain program.
That's one of my favorite programs.
So good.
Yeah, and that's a good example of the kind of what Louise, you were saying about like having music that is not always like skating music, but then people know it and it really makes an impact. I think, that's a great program.
I think that the best programs are actually the ones that you might not necessarily like the music, but then you see somebody skate to it and you're like, oh, okay, that was clever. Or I actually really like that music, but if you listen to it separately, you're like, oh, that is not skating music at all. But there are some people that see the potential in it and take the risk, and actually you're quite entertained by it, you know? And there are a few of those about at the moment, actually, that I find myself pleasantly surprised that I'm like, I would never have skated to that or expected to choose that for somebody, but, smart choice. Yeah.
And I think after the short, we might have expected the Georgians were going to pull off the whole thing. And then having that fall for her fall on the side-by-side jump, made that happen. I was both very impressed with their quality seeing them in person, but also they don't have the same, they do seem junior-ish just in their presentation in a lot of ways. And so I'm kind of, from my non-technical perspective, I was glad to see that some of the teams that I think are a little bit more developed from that perspective, still being able to be competitive, even though they're very impressive from a elements perspective.
I feel he also has great expectations on what he expected the results to be at Europeans and what he wants to achieve. And I have to say, I felt it was really nice, particularly I read some of the press conference quotes afterwards as well, because I didn't attend them, but I felt he seemed happier than the same time last year. And having watched him and Karina last year, and I found it really, I struggled to watch their energy and their overall, there was sort of a disregard that seeing him with his new partner now, I felt, okay, I feel like this is better, this is more healthy, and he seemed happy. He didn't look very happy when his scores came up in the kiss and cry area. I don't know if they showed that in the venue, but on my screen it was there. And I was like, oh, maybe you need a bit more time, because you can't expect a result necessarily. You have to earn a result. And, we know things go on behind the scenes, etc., but that's not, as an athlete, that's not what you can control. So, and I think he dealt with, after the free program, I think he pretty much said that actually in reality, we've done a lot so far this season. You can't expect, when we've only been together a short time, for it all to go right all the time. So, but I usually write down the ones I think will win, the ones I want to win. And because there might be people that I just feel a connection to, or I know from my work, and my ones to watch. And I was like, you have watched them. because you look at the papers. I'm a very techie, data-driven person, so I was like, look at this. These ones are the ones to watch for sure. And they definitely are ones to watch. But there was a point, and I thought they would just walk it. But I think it was a really, really good result in the end. Honestly, the right result based on performances.
I totally
Now I would be
agree.
curious to know who you wanted to win and who.
I got my notes here, like just in case.
Sure.
I can't even remember. Continue talking. I'll get to my notes.
Yes.
I was gonna say, I know the Hungarian team were disappointed with the scores they received. I don't necessarily think they have a leg to stand on with that opinion, because their program components are demonstrably less than the teams around them. So while I could see it like making a case for them pushing for the bronze, I don't think they're underscored. I think they have things to work on and improve on. And you can't just go back to the media and say, oh, we're underscored, we don't agree with these scores. You have to look at the scores you're getting and think, why am I getting these scores and what can I do to improve so that I do get the results that I want next time, in my opinion.
And Maria said that Maria Pavlova said that their coach was also telling them that they were underscored. And again, I don't think that that's particularly helpful in that case. It's
said that in the media as well.
Yeah, this is why you should have, I mean, I totally understand that it could be really frustrating to feel like you are doing as well as you can do, and you're kind of doing what the rules say you should be doing to do well, and to feel like you're not getting rewarded for it. Like, I totally understand that being really frustrating. And she's clearly an incredibly, I kind of like her in that sense that she's like very competitive and like really has a very strong personality, you can tell. But yeah, it's like, that's not, you just have to, like, this is why judges could give feedback. It's like, okay, well, if you're not, what you need to do is push your components, like, okay, go work on that or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe in that case as well, this is when I feel choice of music is actually quite key. If you know that you're struggling on components, then I'm not suggesting they were, but it's not the time to be rebellious or outspoken or any of those things, and so maybe for their future to pick something that allows them time to breathe, time to work on just extension and finesse, and look at the teams around you. What are they doing well? What do you do well? Do more of that. But then the areas you're falling down on, really try and work on it, and then pick a vehicle that will allow you to show off the hard work you've done. And again, I'm not commenting on what they've done this season, but I think when we talked about music just previously, I think that's when it becomes quite important to really pick something, and maybe choose a choreographer that will help you and nurture that side of things, because it's 50% of what you're doing essentially, both on the quality of elements and on just your basic skating ability and the construction of everything, a bit like gift wrapping a parcel, so it's not the same gift if you put it in a brown paper box and wrap it in newspaper, so but I like they have like a level of attack that I really like, so if they can hook on to not get fixated on being underscored, but how can we make that gain, then they can excel, I'm sure.
They could so break through next season to being one of the top teams. Like, I think it's just that this year was people getting to know them a little bit, and next year, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that's a frustrating thing to feel, but this is why I think I couldn't be an ice dancer, because that attitude would be so frustrating to me. But
I mean, been there, done that. Let's just say, in hindsight is a great thing as well. I've learned a lot for my future career from having been there myself. So, but yeah, is how it is.
We're almost 45 minutes in, and we've only talked about pairs.
I know. I was just thinking.
I do want to hear the list, and I feel like then we can move on.
What was that? Sorry, I missed that.
I do want to hear your list now, and then I think we can move on.
So here is my little cheat sheet that I put together before each event I commentate on. So who do I think will win? So I put down Hassavolodin or Conti. I sat on the fence with this one, by the way. Conti Machi, and then the dark horses in the competition were the Georgians for me, without question. So I just flicked through my notes and was like, oh, right, this was the one. So who do I want to win? And I put a lot of teams with great potential, so it's hard to choose. So I'm not really very useful. What I did put, and again, these are notes for me when I'm commentating, but that I am really impressed by the Italian schools and their ethos and what they're doing and how they have kind of stripped back to basics, and they're very humble with their approach. So, you know, they were to see that being rewarded the way that I feel that they're putting that together within pairs would be nice. Which happened because we got 2 or 3 on the podium. So I'm happy.
I think I said this after Europeans last year, but I think I have to repeat it now, which is that the Italians, when they win, are having so much fun and are cheering and are so happy for each other. And the whole, like, all the Italians are like always like, you know, hugging and kissing and being so happy that it makes you like want, like, even if the Italian teams like or skaters like weren't the ones I was rooting for, it made me want them to win because like you want to be part of that energy. And so it was really fun to see that backstage and to see them like all cheering and supporting each other. So it's
healthy camaraderie as well. You know, I think that helps. It just creates so much more positivity when you can genuinely, you know, I'm gutted I didn't skate well, but I'm really pleased for you. You know, I still want to beat you, but I'm really, you know, I'm thrilled that you had your moment. So it's, you know, I think it's better for your general health to be like that if you can find it.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's move on to the men. Lois, can you?
Yeah.
Can you do the
so
men?
Gold is, so gold is Adam Shahumfar, silver Alexander Selevko, and bronze Matteo Rizzo.
How are we feeling about that?
Did anyone see Selevko coming on the podium?
I was going to say, I don't think anyone expected Selevko to be on the podium.
No, not me. Certainly not before the race. It did not make my list, I can tell you now. But he will do next time. But I was actually really thrilled that he was marked so well in the short program because, you know, he started way back. I'm pretty sure nobody saw him coming, and great innovation. Like that guy and his team, they know the rules inside out, the helography. I mean, I was, you know, just in awe of what they put together. And it's like we said earlier on, if you don't deliver it, then it's meh. But talk about timing. You know, so to be so well placed after the short was great. And then, you know, could we have blamed him if it had fallen apart on the free? Not really, because it was, you know, but no, it's amazing. It's great. I love our sport for that, you know, so good for him.
Yeah. And then to see, I mean, to have the brothers competing together and to have it be such a hard competition for Mikhail, and then being so strong for Alexander, it's like, oh, that was very painful. But it was good to see them. And I believe that they will have 2 or 3 spots next year. Did we ever figure that out?
It's 2. I know a lot of people thought it was 3, but it's 2 because if it had just been Alexander in that competition and he had finished second, it would have been 3 because usually top 2 gets you through. Because Mikhail was 30th or whatever, you get 18 points if you don't make the free skate. So together that's 20 points. You need like 28 to get to 13 to get 3. So
it's still 2, but yeah. I talked after the competition to Johanna Alik, who's she's a former Estonian skater and owns the Jivsport company that does like skating clothing. And she was saying just how like she'd been up until 4 a.m. the night before because all the Estonians were partying and having but also I think she was just like, we were all so revved up that I don't think they actually stayed out until 4, but she was like, I just couldn't sleep afterwards. Like they were all so happy. And between this performance and then Nina Petrikina doing so well at Skate America, it's like, I think they're also feeling this, like, we've been building for a long time to get to this point, and now it's all finally starting to pay off. So that was also a really nice like story to see that. I don't know. I feel like somehow at Europeans more so than on the Grand Prix, people really feel like they're representing their country, and that like all the skaters and the coaches and all the people that are from, from that country and that federation are like, really pulling for who's there representing them, and in a way that feels a little bit more, I don't know, somehow like emotionally attached as the country than it does earlier in the season.
And it's a shame with both Petrokina and Evelos Cubas both being injured. They've now gone back down to one spot because of the results that they got here. So it's a shame that they haven't been able to maintain that in the women's event.
I'm super happy for Alexander, and I'll have to say that Adam, I think, was the clear, like, a correct winner in that he was absolutely still the strongest here. It was not Adam at his best here, which was a shame, but yeah.
I would agree with that. And I was checking in with Chris Daly and vice versa, and he said to me, I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of the practices. He was like, I'm telling you now, like, Adam is just in a league of his own when you see his skating skills and his ability to perform. And what impresses me so much is the skaters now, they need to be able to take themselves off axis to do the step sequences to be sure they're going to get that level 4. And my God, he's never on an axis. He doesn't have one. It's just, and that for me, I'm like, that just takes a whole level of core stability that is superhuman, and so I really believe nobody does that quite as well as he does. I mean, I don't know if we're talking about Kevin Amos, but he gives him a run for his money when he's on it. I mean, that's a whole different topic you might not want to talk about today, but yeah, but other than that, for me, everybody else has an axis. They go away from it, they come back, but Adam, no. Somewhere else.
Yeah, he's very impressive. And I just because of the timing of like me running up and down from watching to the mix zone, I didn't get to see either of his performances live, but I did watch him in the practice, and he's very, very impressive. And now 2-time European champion back to back like that. And then Matteo, I was so happy for. And I think that in some ways this bronze means it's his 3rd Europeans medal, and in some ways I think it probably is the one that is going to be the most meaningful for him. He was very emotional afterwards and just was saying that this was as well as he possibly could have performed, maybe even above where he thought he could have been, given how he's quite injured right now. And he has an ability, I think we've seen this a few times with this free skate, to kind of doesn't matter where he was, transcend the short program and be able to just perform. That makes it really exciting to watch. Just especially, even though I really like his short program, it's especially in the free skate, he has that energy that I was just very, very happy to see him do this so well. And we were saying after the competition that if I very much hope that he's able to get his surgery and come back and everything, but he did say that it's potentially career threatening, that what he's got with his hip injury. So I was just thinking, well, if worst came to worst and this was his last competition, I think it would be one to be really proud of. And then hopefully that's not the case, and hopefully he'll be back next season and everything. But it was a really, I think it was a really emotional moment for him.
Yeah, I think the management of the recovery is key, and not coming back too soon. I mean, I'm sure he'll, it might change things for him, but if he's got the passion to return, I think just keeping that at bay while you're 100% fit is key, because coming back prematurely you've got to think of life after sport as well, which when you're in it, you don't think about it, because you're invincible, right? But yeah, it's really important that he manages that well. But I'm sure that the team around him will look after him and guide him wisely.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely
Johnny
wishing him
Bowie
luck.
was saying, my heart broke for Lucas.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
had such a consistent season, and it just did not get all put together in the free skate here. He obviously had the opportunity to be second. And had he had potentially a different Grand Prix assignment, he could have maybe made the final. Like his fourth place score at Grand Prix de France was, I think, higher than the gold medal winning one in Canada. So it's been a bit of an unfortunate season of him trying to live up to the success he had last year. I mean, obviously he got the same result, but it was a shock bronze last year, and he was kind of expected to maybe land on the podium this year. So it was good, but he wasn't on.
He's a really nice, really humble person, and I think in some ways he's surprised at like how well he was doing, and that's part of the process for him now, is to figure out like, well, what does it mean to actually be one of the top competitors, and managing that. Louise, you mentioned Kevin, and I do want to just say that whatever Kevin has going on, I think we're definitely hoping the best for him. I don't know what that's going to mean for him for Worlds or anything in the future, but I was talking to Javier Fernandez, who's working with Luca Canamides right now, and so and he was saying that he had actually was reaching out to Kevin's coach to see if there was anything that that he could offer, any support or anything, just because like as a skater watching that and knowing that there was something going on, that you care about the person first, and wanting him to hear that from other people who are associated with French skating. It was a really nice moment. I'm not doing it justice, but I think despite all of it, there was definitely like people were worried, but also like trying to look out for him.
Yeah, I feel the same. I found it heartbreaking to watch. It is often nerve-wracking to watch because we're not, as French nationals proved also, you're not quite sure what you're going to get. I root for him so much, though, like to Skate America, his bolero was just amazing. Like I just was mesmerized by it, seeing it live, and I just, you just connect with these people, and I the same. I wish him the absolute best. I really hope that he's well looked after. And I thought that it was really interesting as well to see Sylvia Fontana. Very often we see her quite heated, and if you watch her body language, she looks like she's trying to tell him to, come on. And she put her arm around him, and she, come on. And I just felt like we let's be kind, because we really don't know what's going on, and this is the second competition in a row that things have not been quite right. And I think first and foremost, you have to look after you, and he needs to look after him. And hopefully it'd be great to see him come back stronger, but I think he just needs to be in a really good, happy place on and off the ice, to be able to reach his potential, whatever that might be after this point. So he's good.
He made a post on social media, I think it was yesterday. That it doesn't explicitly say he's going to withdraw from Worlds, but it kind of implied that we might be heading in that direction. And I think it would be good for him to take that time off and reset, and maybe come back next year with a different mindset. Because I don't think he could handle another competition of this nature this season. Like it'd be the Grand Prix final, then Nationals, and then Europeans, and then Worlds. I don't personally think the French Federation should have ever assigned him to this competition in the first place. I think they should have maybe taken that decision away from him and said, take some time for yourself, and maybe we'll put somebody in else who has an opportunity to go to this competition instead. But what's done is done at this point.
It's true. It's true. May I just throw one thing out there? And I am totally changing the subject, so please dismiss it. But may I ask your opinion on the backflip from Adam? I have my own opinion, but did we like it? Did we not like it? Did we wonder why it was there? Did we, what I mean, you know?
He's been doing it consistently this season, so I'm not entirely surprised he did it. Considering the skate was not entirely clean, I was a little bit surprised he put it in there at the end, but then he obviously knows the math and he knows the odds of anyone coming close to him at this competition are not great. So he kind of he's going to do what he wants to do at this point. He likes doing the backflip. And I did wonder if it was just a case of him just doing it to entertain the audience, like he said at first. But then I listened to his interview with Chris during the broadcast when one of the other events was on during warm-up. And it does kind of sound like, well, kind of made it clear that he wants the rules to be changed to allow more opportunity for skaters to be more creative and to allow them to do more dangerous moves like that, which is interesting.
Yeah, I'm conflicted about it because on the one hand, I think, is a backflip really that much more dangerous than the side, a side aerial, than a quad jump, than are we, what is the reason for, for doing this when the skaters are going to do it all the time in the exhibitions? I have some qualms about it from that perspective, but I do feel like I don't like necessarily the idea that we're just going to keep rewarding like tricks, and it seems like it's a trick. It seems like it's an acrobatic thing. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's skating to me. It's like, cool, you can do a backflip, but what does that actually say about your skating ability? I've never done a backflip on skates. I don't know what it says about your skating ability, but it feels like, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. It's not what draws me to skating. On the other hand, I see the way the crowds react to it and how much people do get into it. So
I feel like it's not the most aesthetic move, but if the song is right and if it like hits the right spot, then it can be quite powerful. And I also wonder how much of it is the history of it being banned from figure skating, because obviously we have to acknowledge that there's quite a bit of history behind it, which we're not going to go into it because we can't do it justice right now. But so I feel like allowing it would maybe not be the worst thing, just because it feels like it was banned for reasons.
Yeah. I'm
one point of discourse I do agree with is that the fact that it can damage the ice when he does it, and there's another skater on after him that could potentially catch a toe pick in the groove he's made in the ice, and that I think if you're going last, therefore there's less danger to it, but that could have affected Lucas's skate because he was on after him. So that therefore, then I do agree that there's an issue that maybe you shouldn't be doing it.
I do wonder how different moves impact the ice in general. Like, does a quad impact the ice a lot more than I wouldn't know because we don't get to see that side, but I was wondering how much truth is to that and how much like different moves truly impact the ice.
Yeah, I think that's got to depend on the skater and the quality of the jump. I mean, of course, a quad takes more force than a triple. But for a toe jump, for me, it's long, low, light for lift with the free leg. So you go back long, you tip in light, and then you lift. But I'm not doing a quad, so but yeah, it's bound to impact it to some extent. But that's the way. How that compares to the amount of force on the backflip for the toe, you'd have to see it side by side, right, to see what difference that made. But I'm sure the person and how they do it makes a difference too. Yeah.
In some ways, I think that it does feel a little bit disrespectful to the people coming after you, or the people you're competing with, not because of the ice piece of it so much, but it's a little bit that like, oh, it doesn't matter if I lose a point. I'm still going to beat you anyway. And like, maybe that's not disrespectful. Maybe that's just competitive. Like maybe that's me being like soft and not like, you know, sports competitive enough, but that it does feel like a little bit of like either that's a flex and we're like excited about it, or it's a little disrespectful. And I think that depends on like,
There's some
how we
cockiness
see it,
to it.
but
Like,
Yeah, I think I don't know if you'd have seen it, but we got a shot, and it was the backflip, and then it was the shot of the two coaches and Fabrice Blondel, and they were just like, and I don't know, it was teamed, so it looked like they were reacting to the backflip.
yeah.
But if that was correct and it correlated and read the way I read it, I think he just thought, oh, we're just, you know, I didn't feel like it was planned by the team.
No.
Again,
it wasn't.
the I was given, but yeah, it was.
I heard the Federation was mad. That was the rumor.
Oh wow!
The Federation was mad that he did it, but
I'm a little bit.
Did an interview and he was like, "Adam's going to be Adam." I didn't know he was going to do that, but you know, he's going to do what he wants.
He's a sweet guy, though, right? He's just doing his thing, carving his career, but yeah, I suppose I associate the backflip with a bit more of a show move. You know, it's something that you know, the people hire for that particular trick, and so there's more extreme skating that's coming into force and gaining quite a bit of momentum these days, and so it almost feels like a separate area of the sport to have a backflip and handsprings and you know, cartwheels. And I know cartwheels are more of a transitional element. That's not the best example now, but I think you know where I'm going with it. The vibe just feels a bit tricky rather than you know, competitive, so to speak. But yeah, he did it, and it didn't really matter, did it? So, you know,
I do wonder how much the energy in the room made him do it, like, because everything was so exciting and over the top, and he just felt like doing it.
I think after a clean skate, it would have had a bit more credibility than after mistakes, and then it wasn't the best backflip either. So, you know, it didn't really. For me, I didn't think, wow. I would just thought, why did he do that? You know?
Yeah, I was just going to say something similar to what Johnny just said. I think it's also partly that Ilya has the quad axel, and that's his thing, and Adam needs his own thing to generate the buzz and the attention that obviously, like, because no one can do the quad axel like Ilya can do it. So Adam's decided, I've learn't the backflip. I have the stamina to put it in at the end of a program. I'm going to put it in.
And in both cases, it has this undertone of, or I don't know, maybe explicit tone of the ISU is wrong about how things are scored. We can do really impressive things and we're not getting the credit for them. Like, so there's a bit of an advocacy that's happening with it also.
Because Ilya's been like withholding the quad axel, going like, I don't want to do it because you're not scoring it high enough. The base value is not high enough.
James is also saying there was a great marketing move because he got like a lot of views, and I think that's, I mean, figure skating is also a bit self-promotion, so
yeah,
he's been going viral everywhere. Like, I think Reddit, Twitter, he's gone viral everywhere for doing the backflip. Yeah.
I mean, and the sport needs that, so you know. Some of the other performances that I wanted to mention, I was really, really impressed with Ivan Shumaratko here. And I want to encourage, if people didn't watch his performances, to go watch them and to watch the short program and the free skate back to back, because they're meant to be the continuation of the same story. And, you know, I think sometimes we have people who are in the sport who are, I think, really impressive and ambitious artists, but if they don't have the technical ability, or sometimes it's even if they don't have like the truly impressive like skating skills, control of the blade part, they don't get the PCS. But I think for what choreographically, what Ivan is doing is really impressive and meaningful in terms of like telling the story of what's going on in Ukraine and just the way he was talking about it afterwards. And so I just was so impressed. And he actually skated very well, doing things for the best of his ability, and that helped, carry it off too. So, when I was thinking about like, well, what are the moments that are going to stay with me? His performances were definitely that for me.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I feel also that he's in the moment, is in his performance, and that is a real art and a skill. But you can learn it, but to make it as natural as he did, that's coming from his heart, and I really felt invited to join him on his journey rather than inviting him to skate for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it really, I will always remember back to the championships after the war had started, and it was a real struggle to say anything. So for me, I'll always have a soft spot for him because I just can't possibly comprehend his journey. I can't. I can try and sympathize, but no one will know like him. So the way he shares his story and his emotion, I just think is a privilege, really, that he's there doing his thing for me to witness.
Both he and Anna Gojna, the Ukrainian women's skater, mentioned things in their interviews afterwards that were basically just the trauma that they're living with, that like being at this championship and seeing, like for him, it was like seeing that the arena was made all out of glass. He was saying like he saw that and he was thinking, oh, if a bomb hits, we're all going to die. And then going, oh, right, we're not in Ukraine. And for her, hearing like a loud sound, like a really loud like music starting made her jump. And just so like it was, hearing that and thinking like, oh yeah, like they're here and they're skating and they're doing with this, but like there's also that going on. So it we're very lucky at a skating a skating competition, you're just like kind of isolated from like everything that's going on in the outside world. And then there were those little reminders of like, oh, okay, that's what these people are dealing with. And it was really impactful. Yeah.
It's difficult to move on from that topic.
I will just say the other two skaters that I was very impressed with here. One was I really liked Nikita Starostin's new short program, the Nutcracker. I think was really lovely, and I was glad to see him do pretty well here. And then I always like hesitate to even like wanted to talk about Denis Vasilyev's because I could go off on like a long rant every time I do about how much I enjoy his skating. So I'll just say that I thought he was great, and I'm still sad that the quads are not quite quadding. And then when there was a moment where I think Brenda and I, who were sitting in the press section, were both yelling like combination at him. Which I think everyone was, but
Yes.
so that was a bit frustrating, but I was glad to see that he said he was artistically fulfilled here, even though not necessarily technically fulfilled, because when I talked to him back at Skate America, I think he was really feeling like struggling, like he didn't feel like he was right into the programs. He was, just his very high standards for himself. And so I was glad to see that he was feeling overall like he's getting there. And then definitely recommend folks to watch his exhibition because I think that it's more so than either of the competitive programs. His exhibition skate is amazing and really probably the best thing that he's done yet in his career. So
maybe Louise can share her list with us again.
This could be a real disappointment. Who do you think will win? Adam, because that's not a difficult one to call. Who do you want to win? I put Adam because I would like to see him defend his title and prove that he can do it more than once. And then I put Kevin Amos because honestly, genuinely, I would love to see him succeed. And then I had Matteo and Dennis because for me, I find them very likable characters. And I know it's sport, but they're ambassadors for people coming through and people watching at home, and they give me off really good impressions both when I see them and I speak to them and when you watch them as well. I feel so, and I love the skating of course, but so it's very hard for me to pick one, when I say who do I want to win, you know. And the ones to watch for me were Kevin. It could go one way or the other. Dennis and Lukasz. I thought, you know, when he's been very consistent, so you know. So yeah, so there you go. There was my list.
And I had the true exciting adventure of making it onto Latvian TV while I was interviewing Dennis, because that was they decided to come along and film as we were doing a live interview with a bunch of fans, and so yeah, so there was a lot of like, see, he does have fans and from around the world too, not just Latvians. It was very funny. It was very sweet and very funny, and it was like that, you know, the local TV trying to explain figure skating to a non-audience kind of vibe. But I was like, you know, I sent a screenshot. I was like, "Look, Mom, I'm on Latvian TV."
You should have given you a hoodie. The logo.
I know it was a nice moment. It was very funny, but it was actually really nice to hear Dennis talk as well after the performance. And you know, even though I think he was disappointed because he was hoping to place better here, he was in a really good mood. So
yeah, anybody else we want to talk about before we move on? Because it's very late already.
We should probably move on.
Yeah, I was wondering how long you can stay. Louise?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, providing no babies wake up, we're good. So
the next category would be women, and we really want to talk about ice dance with you, of course.
Yeah.
Laura's also saying big shout out to Georgi Richtenko. Sorry, I can't talk today.
yeah, he did really well here. Yeah.
Okay, women. Maybe Itsumi. Maybe you.
Yeah,
want
I can take this one. So in first place we have Luna Hendricks. Second we have Anastasia Gubanova, and then third we have Nina Pinzaroni. So for Belgium, it was a very strong competition. And I think it was Nina who was talking here, and she also said the same thing at NHK, which was that Belgium being a very small country, going up against all those like bigger federations internationally, and with the limited sort of access to ice rinks and the facilities that those bigger federations have, to see them like thriving here, and the season in general has been really nice.
Yeah, agreed.
Luna in the press conference said Belgium's lucky to have us, which I think is true. And also I liked that she was feeling, you know, the confidence to say that in that moment, because basically what she was saying is like, you know, they're doing really well despite not having great, you know, training conditions in the country. And I think it was a little bit of a, like, you know, just a little bit of a dig of like, hey, you know, it'd be nice if there was like actually a you know, functioning figure skating rink in our country and we didn't all have to run around to train in different places and everything. So I'm always I'm a fan of skaters advocating for themselves and what they need, and so I thought it was kind of nice that she took that that moment of, you know, being very of the team, you know, both of them being very proud of themselves to say that too.
I also feel like it's always something a lot of skaters might do after they retired, but it's one thing to do it while you are still competing. And yeah, we've seen that a lot lately, which I really like.
Yeah.
Recently, a lot of people are speaking out for themselves.
Yeah,
So,
And
yeah.
I'm interested. Sorry.
No, apologies. I was just going to say, I think timing needs to be key with that. You know, you can say that when you're of that level, you know. So,
but I also think it's important to say it when you're at that level, because you're also advocating for people who are coming and who are not at that level. So
yes,
that's your chance to do it.
I was going to ask Anna what it was like seeing Luna's programs in person, because I'm still like on the fence about how I feel about those two programs this season. But is it like a different experience watching it live?
I saw her free skate live, the short program. I was in the mix zone, actually talking to Nina. I have a kind of some funny pictures that'll go in the recap of Nina watching Luna's performance on the monitor, kind of leaning around like while talking to us. But yeah, I think that when Luna is at her absolute, when she is hitting everything and can fully like live into those programs, they do really work. If she's a little off, they don't as much. And I think it really takes a huge amount of confidence to carry it off. And so like, while I wouldn't say that they're my favorite programs overall, like I really do respect what she's doing with them because I think they're really difficult, both technically in terms of like putting combinations in the second half and the sheer like athleticism it takes to be able to do them, and I think the confidence that it takes to be able to do them. So yeah, I found that very impressive. She, in some ways, I think she seemed a little bit in better shape in like just in terms of like energy level and strength and consistency when I saw her at Skate America than when I saw her here. But I think that at this point, I can't remember if she said that she had been sick over the last few weeks, but because it felt like at least 50% of the skaters that I talked to had been sick at some point in December and hadn't missed training time. So but she was great here, but she was great, but I know she can be better. So that's also the very high bar that she sets.
Yeah, I think she got ill a little bit earlier than that. I think she missed Belgium Nationals because she was very run down and she was sick, and Nina won that. So yeah, I think maybe she's a bit better on form now than she would have been slightly like in December or whatever. But yeah, she probably not as like healthy as she was at the start of the season.
Yeah. I feel like we had some really exciting sort of new names coming up in the women's event this year. And they're not new, but to see Olivia Kaiser place fourth here, she had some of the best skates of the both sections. Serena Hughes also was really impressive here. Yeah, so it was really cool to see some new faces for, people who are really pushing and challenging.
What was the most surprising to you? Because I just saw that the Polish skater, I forgot her name,
Katarina Krakova, yeah, she
didn't make the final. I was surprised to see that.
Yeah, everyone was very upset with that. I do think maybe she was. I know she had issues with her jobs, but I do think maybe she was a little bit underscored. I mean, she obviously only missed by like half a point, and she got a time deduction, which if she hadn't got, she would have made the free skate. It's just very unfortunate.
Yeah, it was rough. I do think that she her jump technique leaves her prone to under rotation calls, and she and I was thinking about the sort of the requirement of the short program and to do the combination the way that they have to do it, that it hurts her, and it also really hurts Laranaki Gutman, another skater who often struggles with a short and then does better in the free. Like for Laranaki, her best combination is her Lutz Euler triple Salchow, and she can't put that in the short program. And so like I think there's some of those short program, there are a few of these skaters who you think like, okay, the short program requirements are definitely holding them back. And to some degree, I would put Katja in that category, but it was a shame. I really think, she's so loved is the other thing. Like, I think it was clear she was one of the most popular skaters there, and people were really upset not to see her in the free. So it was really a shame.
Me included. I love her. I think she's super likable. I really like the way she expresses. She's instrumental with her own choreography, and her choices, really, she knows what she's good at and she makes her choices accordingly. And she is a skater that's not afraid to say, hang on a minute, that doesn't work for me. And she's not old, so to have that voice and use it, I think is really important. I mean, I was just stunned that she was outside of the qualification. I get it, but I mean, I think it was a time. I know she had a deduction time violation, was it, or something?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what did it. I don't think she was meant to slip outside, but I mean, it's just how it goes. But I agree with you, Anna. I think, unfortunately, when you're, I don't know if consistent is the right way to put it, but you're very prone to being under rotated or within the queue. It just leaves you open and vulnerable for losing marks in a field where if everybody skates similarly, you have to differentiate between the good and the amazing, And so I really, listening to her interview afterwards, she said it'll kill me or it'll make me, and pretty much that. And I think her character, it will make her, but I think she needs to focus on the right things, which is get that rotation sorted, because then you're gonna gain rather than lose from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a little anecdote. I think we've mentioned it before. We interviewed her once and she was like the sweetest. She was so kind. But we made a mistake in like the opening. We always send the interviews out for them to like proofread or like just to fact check. And we made a mistake and she just emailed back, "You made an error." We were like, "Oh my God."
Please change this.
It's like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. But she's very sweet, and she's also like, oh, this has to be
very direct.
It's very impressive because like this was like 2 or 3 years ago, and
yeah. She's like 21 now, I think, isn't she? So
yeah, she's very direct.
And then Johnny said Loreen Sheard had 2 great skates.
Yeah,
she's a very consistent performer.
Yeah, she's been very impressive. I've seen her since she was a juniors, but she's really come into her own. It's like her first full senior season. I do get worried about her technique for longevity because despite the fact that she manages to land everything, her axis in the air is always a bit off. And that concerns me if maybe if she grew or if anything changed, that could throw off her jumps. But she does have great potential, and I like that her programs were choreographed by Gabriela Papadakis this season. I think that really helped her to tap into a new style and new experience.
She had really nice things to say about how much she loves working with Gabby and just how much it had helped her. And she's actually, she is one of the tallest skaters right now. And that can be a good thing in some ways and a challenge in others. And just I was impressed seeing her live though. I thought that the quality of her skating, her speed and her commitment to it was better than I was expecting, having seen her on TV. And it's always hard to know how much of that was the difference of seeing her live versus on TV versus how much she's been able to improve over the course of the season. But I thought she did very well here and really deserved to be up in that top group.
Yeah, I think also that the skating skills and the basic quality of what she's doing will improve as she matures as a skater, because she's young as well. And I think she's got these great long limbs, and I think just getting the weight on the skate in the right place going forwards and backwards and learning how to really stretch your legs around the kneecap, and because her overall expression wasn't great. Lois, you are totally right. Watching it from where I watched it, her axis was you'd think you were, oh no, but she landed it. It was really
like a cat.
Yeah, I would not. It was like a cat with 9 lives. She, oh my gosh. But yeah, I think that maturity. I mean, she's already working with the right people. Gabriela Papadakis, and I think more of that will serve her really well. But yeah, I think she's going to grow from this, and I just hope that she gains more control over her height and her body rather than it goes the other way, because we see this as the girls mature very often, that it can go one of 2 ways. But I think she's surrounded by good people, so I think they know how to deal with that, so yeah, we'll see how she goes, but so far so good.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for her in the sense, just having talked to her and seeing her attitude and the people around her, it felt very I mean, from what you can tell from the outside, it seemed very supportive and not pressured in the sense that like she has to achieve everything right now. And I think that seems like a really good thing for someone her age. And it's one of the things that really impressed me. I was thinking about this with this Europeans, that there were a couple of skaters who made such a great case in the women for the benefits of a long career, that we could see Julia Sauter coming in 9th. She's improved her placement, which was already a great placement from last year, and she's 26 and she's getting better, still getting better. I think it was really impressive to see Nina Povey actually skated very well here, sort of mid-level placement, but she's 29 and at her first Europeans. Like, I think that those are examples. And then, to some degree, Luna, who's not that old, but like, for to have someone in their 20s being able to do so well. And I think it's also that fact that, there are people who are better in their 20s than they were as teenagers, hopefully is reassuring to the teenagers who are feeling like they have to achieve everything, right now in their first time out, or it won't happen.
Yeah, I think you're completely right with that. I think it's so important for the sport that the I mean, how can you say an older skater at 26, 24? But it's true that are rewarded equally and encouraged, because you have talented 16-year-olds that don't want to think their career's over at 16, when there's so much more that they can give to the sport. And I think it was quite healthy that in each discipline at Europeans here, we had really strong role models that maybe were well into the 20s, late 20s, 30s. Look at pairs, look at dance, the champions become like 34, 35. Yeah. It's really significant that, that we also give an example that it's not about getting to, out of your teens and you quit because you've not made it yet. If you can, and you have the means to be able to continue, there's a lot more you can give if you want to and you have the passion for it. And when you, after your competitive career, if you're going into shows, there are skaters skating like very, very hard and intensely up to a very, very high age. So I think some of the limitations come around the Olympic cycles and the timing, as well as pressures maybe from federations, etc. But I was never one of the teenage talents myself. So I'm a strong advocate for these slightly more mature, experienced skaters still having their chance to shine. I think it's wonderful.
I was also really happy that Alexandra Golovkina got to come and skate at her, at her home Europeans. I know she wasn't the top scoring Lithuanian skater, like maybe I think at nationals this year. I know that, and it seemed like there was a little bit of controversy over her getting sent. I think she's a really lovely skater, and again, it's like she doesn't have the hardest content, but for what she can do, she did well. And she had a really beautiful exhibition piece that I thought was very special and showed off all of those qualities. So I was very happy for her to get, as a skater that doesn't really get that kind of spotlight that much, it was really nice to see her have it too.
I think she's a beautiful skater as well. Like there's, if she can continue to give, I would watch her all day when she's on it. I thought she had a beautiful style, and so it looked like a really lovely technique, and the finesse and attention to detail was really nice to see. So yeah, good on her. And Nina Povey, as you mentioned, so they train similarly in Dundee in the UK. So sorry, Nina trains in Sheffield, but both training in the UK. So yeah, good for them for holding their own out there.
Yeah, they're both very, again, I feel like they're great role models for quality skating and people who have been able to persist in their careers. So
yeah.
Maybe we should listen to the list again. Is there a women's list? Because then we can find more.
Okay, so who did I think would win? Luna. And who did I want to win? Luna, because I feel like it's, the one that got away. And I was like, come on, this time it has to be your turn. I put ones to watch. Kimi Rapon. We've not mentioned her yet. I wasn't really wowed by her at Europeans this time around. Last year, I was completely. Gubanova, because I was like, she had it last year. And, maybe she was going to take us by surprise. I had Kechi Kurakova, by the way, on there. Yeah, those were my 3 ones to watch. So there you go.
Yeah. I would say that Kimmy, I'm always impressed when I see her live at her speed. And just when she's out there, she's going like twice as fast around the rink as some of the other skaters. Not always with the most complexity or anything, but it is actually, it seemed very impressive to me. And then I do also really worry about her because she's grown so much. And from what she was saying about her technique and her approach, I worry that it's dependent on her being very thin. And so, just with everything we know about in the sport, I'm not trying to, make any assumptions about what's going on with her, but it just, it concerns me a little bit. And so I really hope that she's like being able to be healthy as she goes through these changes with puberty and, isn't feeling like, again, like she has to maintain everything perfectly, but as she adjusts, but she's grown so much, and it is concerning for me to see her trying to maintain exactly the same sort of technique and size that she had as a younger skater.
Yeah, I think that, and this is something that's quite important in so many ways. I think whatever age you are and wherever you are in the sport, it's really important that you don't miss any fundamental component of looking after yourself as an athlete, as a human, as anything else. I had also heard a few different things, and I think also just being up there ahead of a role model in Switzerland. It's you need your athletes to be healthy and setting good examples. And I really am not talking about whether she is or whether she isn't, but I think that the growing thing, and as you said about the psychology, the principles of how we jump like that. I mean, we need to be very protective of good technique, good conditioning, good nutrition, good psychology, all those things. So we're really developing the coaches of the future as well, not just the children or young athletes of the moment. Perhaps slightly controversial, but it is very important. Those things.
Yeah, and I think I was certainly colored by the fact that I was, like I said, I was having did an interview with Johanna Alik, who's talked a lot about eating disorders and skating and the pressure that she felt as a skater and just some of those dynamics. And I think that being in the front of my mind was also then, I see, the reality is that, some skaters, not knowing any, one person's story in particular, but the likelihood in this sport is that there are some skaters who are dealing with body image, eating disorder, any of that. And so just knowing that in the back of my mind, it does put sometimes it does make it hard to watch the sport and the women in particular. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's something that I always think about, balancing my sense that like I want to enjoy everyone skating and hope that they're being healthy, and also knowing that there are probably some people who are struggling with things that we don't see.
Yeah, I think you're right with that. But I think that goes for lots of topics, not just when it comes to nutrition. But I think it is certainly as a female athlete in an artistic sport, there is a lot of pressure on you. And from my own experience, quite often the education isn't there as to how to be full of energy, lean, and all those things as well. But, if you think of it in terms of something very black and white, if you don't put fuel in a car, it doesn't go, And so our bodies are just the same, and we need good nutrition for recovery, for, prevent injury, having high energy levels. And so it's a fundamental part, but not knowing how to do that, I think, is a big problem that really is very helpful when you learn how to look after yourself well. And it's not that easy because it's not always, a given. I didn't have access to things like that. I had to go and study to learn how to do those things because I couldn't afford a nutritionist or, things like that. So I think it's really important to give the athletes the means to be able to look after themselves smartly.
And I feel like it's so important not only to hire nutritionists for wings, but also psychologists and like therapists, physiotherapists, or whatever it's in English. And then you see people like Iteri going to a diet show on TV, and it's like it's a very different topic, but
interesting topic, but a different topic.
Yeah. And I think we should, at one point in the off season, definitely dive into that and maybe do a live stream on all of these topics because I think it's important. And then maybe we should look at some of the comments. No one's mentioned Livia.
And
I did
yeah,
mention
briefly,
Livia.
yeah, I
She
was very
really
proud of
impressive, but we
Livia.
didn't talk about it very much.
Sorry, I didn't. Sometimes
Yeah, I
I
was very
forgot
proud
the
of Livia,
names you mentioned.
considering she had a very good short program last year, and then not a very good free skate, and they really tanked her result last year. So I'm very proud of her that she was able to.
Oh no.
We lost her.
maintain a.
You were proud of her. That's what counts.
Yeah. And I think she made a lot of new fans here. It was cool to see that as well, that people were, a lot of people I think who hadn't noticed her last year because of exactly what you said, were getting to really appreciate her.
Yeah.
And unless there's somebody you want to mention, somebody else, then we can move on to ice dance because it's almost 2 hours already. Maybe Anna, you can.
Sure. All right, so repeating for gold, we have Charlene Guignard and Marco Fabri, and then silver, Lila Fier and Lewis Gibson, and then bronze was Allison Reed and Saulius Ambrolucius. And so we had a repeat of our top two, though I think with a lot of close scoring and drama, especially coming out of the free skate, they were only about a point apart, or coming out of the rhythm dance, you're only about a point apart there. So that was, I would say, a little more drama and excitement than we often get in ice dance, to see who was going to end up taking the title. And then it was a really kind of emotional, wonderful bronze medal for Allison and Saulius with their home crowd. And just, I was a little worried going into the free dance whether they were, going to be able to ride that and not let it overwhelm them, because having so many people want you to do well, it's amazing. But I also was just like, what if the ridiculous amount of noise and shouting that's going on right now throws them off their twizzles or something? But they did really well. And I thought,
yeah, they were very composed.
They would have deserved that bronze, even if they hadn't had a home crowd advantage. I think that performance would have done it for them.
Let's give Itsumi's interview with them a shout out. Thanks, Connie, for the compliment.
Interesting comment by Sage. I disagree that Julia and Matthias were robbed. I think they've consistently had some issues with their levels this season. I don't think they were specifically tanked in order to give the bronze to Allison. So I think even if they had a better skate, I don't think it would have been close, because Allison Sol was so on it in that competition. I think they were destined to get the bronze no matter what.
It was interesting. I did feel like, of all the teams that were a lot of teams, I think, there were a lot of personal bests in ice dance and a lot of teams that were doing well here. And then Julia and Matthias did have, probably one of the teams that had a competition to not be happy with. And that was, I would agree though, that it was more their performances than anything else. And then I think it's just they were buoyed, up by the home crowd in the past. I thought that it's hard to go from third to sixth.
Yeah.
So, but I think that was in some ways less about them than it was that there were some fantastic performances. For me, the breakthrough teams here, the ones that I think are going to really take a boost of momentum moving forward, were Louise Demico. I really should. I had interviewed them here. I really should have her name pronounced better now, but I struggle with French. And Theo Lemercier. They ended up, this is their third Europeans, but they're very young. For them to place fifth here is amazing, and they really climbed in the free dance. Yes.
They're one of my favorite teams. I love them.
Yeah, and they just have such great energy, super nice people, and I also really appreciate how they and the other young French team are really, they're different. They're from each other, and they both are really exciting for the future of French ice dance. And then Yuka and Yuho, the other Finnish team, I thought did fantastic here. And for them also, to place 10th in this field was a real accomplishment. And they took every bit of the energy from that crowd into their programs. And given that Yuka was really injured, knee and shoulder injuries going into this, they did so well. And I think, again, really, they've had fans for a long time, but I think really here also solidified themselves as a new kind of contender.
Yeah, they were a real treat, honestly, more so in the free dance for me than the short. But I thoroughly enjoyed the performance, and I hope we get to see more of them, because I think they're really they were just very warm, weren't they, to watch? I really felt like I was there with them. I wanted to get up and skate with them. If a team makes me want to put my skates on now, I love them. So if I can sit back and go, oh no, you know what, it's fine, it looks hard work, I'm all right. But if they make me want to skate, then they get my vote. So and they did. Yeah, I just going back to the first Finnish team, I actually think, in comparison to last season, I'm a little bit less affected by them somehow. I feel like it's a chain of very neat technical elements, and they don't pull on my heartstrings as much as they've done in the past. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it what exactly has changed, because they're actually beautiful to watch. And I had the pleasure of spending a bit of time with Maurizio Magalio last summer or the summer before, and the guy is, well, inspiration. He's very he's more technically data driven than me. He has it all in a spreadsheet, and it's very, 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 every practice is scored GOE and this, that, and the other, and he has graphs, and he was showing me his graphs, and very, very good. But actually their skate kind of reflects this. Maybe if you haven't seen those things, you wouldn't have the same opinion as me. But yeah, so I think you're right. I think there are teams out there that are really entertaining. They are able to draw the crowd in a lot, and they are producing the technical content. And so there's no real room for error or mistakes or dropping a level, because it's quite close, and there's a lot of good people out there doing their thing.
Yeah, and the Finns are getting a lot of support in the comment section, which is everybody has their own taste, their own opinion. I'm just putting up the comments right now, which brings me to a question I have. How are we feeling about the second place?
Oh,
I'm very happy with the podium. That's exactly the podium I wanted.
I have to say, I think the result was right. I was even with the third place, I really wanted Alison and Solius to really skate out of their skin. So for me to be able to feel like they should be in bronze irrespective of where they were, and I did. Unfortunately, Lila and Lewis, they made mistakes, and I haven't. I when you hear they're going to skate to Rocky earlier on in the season, I was like, really? What? But listening to them, speaking to them, they have really tried to be respectful of boxing and, learn the craft, so to speak. And I feel in previous seasons that odd transitions still looked a bit junior to me. Loose free legs, bent knees, and thrown away arms. And I felt looking at them here as silver medalists that they really have raised their game. They're improving season on season on season. I love them as people, as a partnership. But I really feel that they know who they are, and they're not afraid to be who they are, and therefore they're choosing material that works for them. And so because it works for them, irrespective of what anybody else might expect or what the judges think, it's bringing the best out in them as performers. So for me, they're definitely worthy of a silver medal. And on the day, I didn't feel their performance warranted the title because they made too many mistakes for me, whereas the Italians were clean. So that's my own opinion on that.
I've come to actually really enjoy the Rocky program. I think it has a few just like really amazing, like their I think it's a combination lift, but where she's sort of spinning around, like it's so good, and it really just draws the crowd in. But I could see, like, if I can see shakiness, then I'm like, oh, okay, there's some, and I think skating where they did in the placement it's a big challenge. I was really impressed with the teams that had like the slower, more classical or whatever programs, and were able to sort of take that energy in the room and like draw it into them and like use the intensity, but not feel like they had to change themselves in any way to match the crowd. And I really feel like the Italians were able. I was kind of worried. I was thinking, how is this program gonna, for the free dance, like how is this gonna land in having just had these two like very explosive moments of crowd energy? But it really felt like they were able to be very present, but like not hurried in a way that was just, they were so smooth. I think it was just the word I kept thinking. Like everything that they did was, I was very impressed. I will just put it that way. Like, I did actually go watch the last three dance teams live, which I don't always get to see things in the arena because I'm usually talking to skaters. But I made sure to go sit and watch those last three, and they were all fantastic. I mean, it was a really great ice dance event overall, and I thought the Italians really were something special, though, like that extra little half step above.
Yeah, and I think I just must say I do love the Rocky program. I'm converted based on my initial opinion of only hearing a music choice. I love it, but I think you're right. I think the Italians were exquisite. I was relieved and pleased that they won on a good performance as well, because I think that doesn't taint the result, because nobody could really argue it or have any bad blood about it, because at the end of the day they skated really clean. They skated with class and elegance, and I think also having the experience, particularly in ice dance, of the bad skates and the different arenas and the different crowds and the different pressures, being that little bit older may have helped them, because they have been able to they're able to draw experiences from anywhere. And I think it was when I saw them, I was speaking to them in when they were in Sheffield at the Grand Prix, and Marco said to me, we can pretty much skate under any pressure now, any circumstance. We've been there, we've done it. I mean, because I was competing against them, and we finished quite longer than I care to remember ago now. And so, I think having that experience really serves them well where they're at right now. And it gives them a sense of like, where they belong and a happy place, because they can draw from those things. They have it in their back pocket to pull out and use when they need from their toolkit, you know. So, but yeah, they really were beautiful, weren't they? I just, yeah, just gorgeous, really lovely to watch.
I really found myself moved by their free dance in a way that I wasn't necessarily expecting from having seen it on TV. But I'm really excited to see. I'm really excited to see all of these teams at Worlds, and then how the Canadians and Americans like fit into that picture. I think is going to be. It feels exciting. It feels like I don't know what that, you know, the rankings around that top 10 or the podium are going to be. That it could go a couple of directions, and that's kind of an exciting thing. But mostly I just feel like I'm looking forward to seeing all of these programs again. And so I'm like, maybe I'll just go sit and watch the free dance. Maybe I won't talk to anybody. Well, let's go to the press conference. Not be a journalist and just be a fan, which is, I'm just laughing at myself because like a year and a half ago, I'm like, ice dance is my least favorite discipline.
Yeah.
But I'm getting converted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I'm thrilled you converted too. But yeah, no, it will be really interesting to see them up against the Americans and the Canadians. I have to say, when I was at Skate America watching Chuck Bates live this season, I was shocked at, they were very, very neat, but I didn't find they carried a lot of speed across the ice or had a lot of ice coverage. And from what I've seen at Europeans and a lot of the other skaters, for example, we haven't mentioned them yet, but the two Czech teams, they are so fast and so powerful. I don't expect them to rival Chuck Bates. But, you know, when you get them up against the Italians this year and Lila and Lewis, who have all improved and actually really go, it will be really interesting to see I would still expect them to potentially win at Worlds, but we'll see how they fare and how they look side by side.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be really interesting. And the Toshlers, I was so happy to see them back and doing well here. And they're so impressive, especially, you know, I was seeing their rhythm dance, and just like when they got on the ice, it was like, oh wow, you are skating in a whole different level. That are like, you know, the speed and the physicality that they bring to everything it's amazing. And I was so happy for them after, you know, taking some time off to be able to come back this strongly. Philip was saying that his injury, he thinks, was caused because he'd been sick, hadn't been able to like eat enough, had lost some weight, and then had been trying to still do gym training through it, and that's how he ended up like damaging his back, which I just thought was you know, he was being very frank about all of that, and I thought it was an interesting sort of example of like, yeah, you really have to take care of yourselves in the basic ways, because if like you're not taking care of yourself and you're trying to push through, eventually something will, you know, break to a point that you can't. And so then the fact that they took the full time off for him to be totally healed before coming back, and then like Natalie was saying, like she then took that time to like, you know, deal with some nagging things of her own. So then they both came back feeling like, yes, we're ready. Was really cool to see. And also my favorite story was that she started taking boxing. And so I was like, oh, you're boxing now, like to add her into the Rocky program somehow. Like,
maybe we can pitch her against Lila.
Yeah. I'd like to see that, you know, that exhibition. But yeah, it was pretty funny. But I was very happy for them.
Yeah, it was interesting. I had heard them say that actually they did not feel underprepared necessarily, because they were able to take care of things. And, you know, it's you can very often be carrying niggles through a season that may have happened in the off season in actual fact, but you don't have time or the relief to be able to just, you know, probably only take a few days off, get some, you know, massage, a little bit of treatment, and not big deals, but they escalate. And so, yeah, I was like, very intelligent to take the time out yourself to rest, recoup, come back fresh. So then the time is quality not necessarily quantity. And I think it's only a matter of time before the Czech teams actually elevate. And I see them, I put them in a similar category to the two French teams that you talked about earlier as well. And I just touching on the French as well, I think they're different enough where they are right now to be different without being outrageous different, because Karina Rubert, their coach, she likes to be a bit different and contemporary. And in the past, I don't know if you would remember Zoe Blanc and Pierre-Loup Bouquet. They competed around the time I did, and some of the things they did were different, very different. But I really feel like they're choosing material that is not necessarily what you would expect as ice dancers, but it's great. It's like a contemporary style of dance. And maybe Papadakis Cizeron paved the way for that, because their style is a little bit contemporary, but I like it. I really like it a lot. So
the two things that they were saying that, I was thinking seem unusual compared to some other skaters was that the French teams, at least the ones that train in Villard, seem to be that they almost all of them started as ice dancers, never were single skaters, so that they've been training ice dance from the time they were little kids. So they've got like a few more years of that under their belt.
Grounding, yeah.
Yeah, and then that they do the like ballet on ice, theater on ice as well, like developmentally, and then like even these teams are still, they don't do the full season, but they join in for like the second part of the season. And they're saying like that's actually one of the things that's cool about it, like teaches them some different partnering skills, but they were saying that it also helps him like skating on his own to experiment a bit more and try some things, and then they each kind of do a bit on their own and then come back together and say, well, what if we tried doing this thing? And so it was interesting to see those pieces of their preparation that are also I think a little bit different than your average team, but seem to be producing interesting results.
Yeah, I think it's really encouraging to see that those, a lot of ice dance is dominated by Montreal and IAM, and we want to make sure that we still get light and shade and variations and personalities, and not necessarily, oh, there we go, I expected that. I think it's good for the sport that we have that variety as well. So, and I genuinely, even amongst the IAN teams at Europeans, I really felt there was a good variety and a good choice of music. And I really, I wasn't sure I was going to love the rhythm dance. Perhaps I'm a little bit old school, but I was like, that's not a rhythm, that's a style, 80s. But I love 80s music, and I love what they're doing with it, and I really could just watch it over and over and over again. And I think the music helps with that. But I think really a lot of those skaters will not have been born in the 80s, but they've embraced it. I feel like it was one for the coaches maybe, but have embraced it and done a great job. And I find it really entertaining to watch. If you just throw the technique aside, it's very entertaining. A great rhythm.
Yeah. One of the things that that Louise and Theo said was that they really wanted to do Rasputin, but then they found out that was 1979, and so they couldn't do it. Which it was one of those, like, every once in a while a skater will tell you a throwaway, like, oh, we almost did this and then that, and then you have this whole vision in your head. And I was like, I think it's good. I actually like their sort of hip hop rhythm dance. I think works really well for them. But it was very funny to imagine the what a Rasputin rhythm dance would have been.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's really good. I'm excited to see more and more of those rhythm dances as the season. We're not far off the end now, actually, but for the next couple of championships, yeah.
Can we talk for a second about Papadakis and Cizeron, and if you think they're coming back?
There was a comment, I think, in an interview that kind of implied they might be, like some sort of almost like a double negative or whatever, that something Guillaume had said that kind of made it sound like, well, if we weren't going to come back or something. So it kind of sounded like, oh, so you are coming back kind of thing. So it's not confirmed, but maybe they are.
I really feel, why wouldn't you come back? I think they've remained active. They've done some really great things individually. They still are showing that they're skating together. They're, you know, besties, and they like each other's company. And I just think that they could still be very ahead, personally. And I really loved them, and they weren't old champions. And I think, why wouldn't they come back, and go again? But yeah, I mean, nobody's confirmed that. That's my hunch is they will. Then my hunch is they will. Will. I think the next few months will be interesting, and I would like to see them come back personally. I think it would be good for the sport. I think it would also be a real good inspiration. Maybe a little bit disappointing for a few people, but those mid-range teams as well, that and the younger teams to have that ahead of them, I think will be really, really good. But we'll see.
I loved the exhibition that they did here. This Bach cello piece. It's it reminds me of all of the best characteristics of what they can do that so few teams can, of doing something that's very stripped down and avant-garde and just so beautiful, but then their edge quality comes through. I mean, so this was my first time seeing them live, and I had I was like, oh, what a lovely extra surprise that we get to have that, and just the first time that I saw them on the ice at the gala practice, each of them just skating and doing some very basic warm-up crossovers. I was like, oh, whoa, okay, you are actually at a different level, even though the other teams are amazing. There was just that something really special and unique, and I think they could do some really interesting things artistically, given the other, the experiences that they've had, the time away. If they came back and were able to really bring that with them, I would love to see. I want to see the programs that they come up with. It's kind of, it's how I'm feeling. It's
that's how I feel about a lot of skaters. I want, just give me a song and skate all of. Which brings me to Laura's question. What would you have skated to for the rhythm dance, Louise?
Wow, what a good question that I have no answer to. That means it is a great question. What would I have skated to? I feel like Eurythmics could have been in the mix.
Yeah.
I'm a dreamer, so something that said "Sweet Dreams" is going to be, up there for me. Yeah, I love a bit of everything in the 80s. I'd have struggled to choose, honestly. Yeah, I think Wham maybe, but then I feel like Wham's a little bit twee, maybe.
Is it thumbs up?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think something a little bit, Eurythmics would probably have been our kind of. We like to be a little bit different if we could, but within the boundaries that allowed, shall we say?
We haven't listened to your list yet, right?
Oh, okay. No, we haven't.
We don't want to miss out on that one.
Well, you might. We'll see. That might have kept you talking all this time. You might not have me back. So who did I think would win? I put Charlene and Marco, but I thought Fear and Gibson would be hot on their heels. I don't think it's cut and dry. On paper, the Italians definitely have the edge, but there's no room for error. And I think that was quite a good, not outlandish prediction or outrageous. It was quite, agreeable. Who did I want to win? And I just put Charlene and Marco or Lila and Lewis, because I have, I'm not a judge. I am an audience member just like everybody else, and I'm a former skater. And so I have connections to them both. So it would be hard for me to make a choice, honestly. But I thought there was a battle for 1 and 2, and then a second battle for 3rd place, which I thought might be between Alison, the Finns, and the Georgians. I thought might be up there. But actually, having seen them, I think they were placed correctly, personally. I think pitched against and seeing them side by side with everybody else, I think they were where they should have been, honestly. And the ones to watch, I felt the French were gaining momentum, so I put Lobre Vidbriso that were fourth, and the Czechs, because I think that their time will come, whether it's not quite now, but I think their time will come. And I just a nod to the other British teams. I think they perhaps didn't have the, Cairns and Carr. They haven't been together very long, so they did themselves proud. And Becca Fernandez, I thought they might be a little bit higher, having been fourth at Worlds, but they weren't clean, and they're young, and it's great experience for them. And they were there as second team, not as first team. So to have a presence, I think, was the important thing, and to gain experience. So yeah, I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they'll be around for a long time. So I'd be excited to see them succeed with Nick.
I was feeling bad for Phoebe, because she was so upset for herself about the twizzle, and then again in the free skate, and I was thinking, oh, how do you, when it becomes a thing that's in your head like that, it's really challenging. And I was asking her, I was like, okay, what do you do to drill, or like what are the things, and that she was saying that they do distracted twizzling, where their coach will like play loud noises or try to surprise them or do something to throw them off and see if they can still keep doing the twizzle through it, which I thought was very funny. I don't know if that's a normal training tactic, but I liked that idea.
A different one. I think just lots of repetition and finding a formula that works for you, because you can have different coaches. I do it when I coach now. It's not that they're right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and they're wrong. It's just different, and we arrive at the same destination, but we might take a different route. And so, good for them getting the distraction technique. I'm all about that. I think that's a great idea. But yeah, it's a bit of a pain, when it gets in your head, and it's a thing because you can read it. I think you can read it in a performance as well. You could see it coming a little bit, but it's quite important to remember that sometimes the mistake is shown and presented by one person, and I'm not saying this was the case with James at all, but it may be that his direction was slightly off, or it was actually a little bit out of sync, and she just happened to look, and that little twitch was what put her off balance. And the first case, I'm again, without reviewing them again, we watched a lot of skating last week, didn't we? But I always try and think, the mistake was by her, but actually, it's not always. Maybe you didn't step quite as wide or something, so it can be off-putting. I do know that. Yeah.
I do want to read out Sarah's comment. Sarah, we miss you. Hopefully you're back next time. So good to see Great Britain have 3 dance spots and have teams to be able to send for them too.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think it's been a lot of hard work over many years, and I was, part of that team way back when. And I really kind of the fruits of all the process from years back. It's really great. I mean, you've probably heard this before, but when I saw Lila and Lewis at Sheffield Grand Prix, I went over to say hi, and I really hadn't spoken to them much before that. I'd taken a break to see my children. I was only ever in the studio, and to have my children, and only ever in the studio. And she said, "You were my flower girl. I was your flower girl at Europeans in 2012." And I was like, wow. I mean, lovely, but that made me feel quite old.
What?
So yeah, she was picking up the flowers on the ice when I competed, and so it was that keeps your feet on the ground. I'm not gonna lie, but but it's nice to know you. She remembered me at least, if nothing else. But yeah, that's what it. Having the championships in your home country, that's what it does. And probably not me necessarily, but that might really have helped fuel the occasion, fuel her inspiration too. So that's great.
I really hope that there are lots of inspired Lithuanian skaters now who those kids and people who really want to, be out there and keep growing the sport. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, the longer we do this, like every year, I'm like, these could be my children. Like there's a moment where I'm like, I could have had a teen pregnancy. These could be my children. It's
At
crazy.
Squid America, that happened to Celine, the French journalist, and I were getting coffee, walking over to the arena, and like the barista was like, "Oh, there's something happening. Like, do you have kids competing there?"
Oh,
And we
no.
looked at each other like, "Oh no!" Like, I'm sure that in his mind he was picturing 8-year-olds competing because he didn't know it. But I was like, "Oh wait."
Yeah.
But as was pointed out many times, Matteo and Marco are very old at their 35 and 36, and that
Don't say that. I'm turning 34 on Friday. Why would you do
I
that?
know I turned 34 on last Wednesday, so I was laughing at that as well. But they were taking every opportunity to point out that Marco is now the oldest man to have won an ice dance title at Europeans because he beat Christopher Dean's record.
Wow.
Yeah. Jane is still the oldest competitor, but yeah, Marco is like second.
Wow.
But hopefully they keep going to, all of these teams, hopefully they keep going to Milan at least. So we'll have a nice, we'll keep having skaters who are older than us, Ellie.
That's true. Will be depressing like in 4 years then. In 2 years it's fine, but in 6 years that will be the depressing Olympics then. When we show up and everyone is younger than us. Yeah, I feel like we should maybe conclude this because it's been 2 hours and 60 minutes and it's currently almost 1 a.m. here.
Oh wow! Oh, I'm doing it at this time as well. I'm apology.
We have a lot of Americans, so who listen to us, who watch us.
I'm
So
sure the American viewers are very happy that we're all a bit later today.
yes.
I'd say that we are all this is the first time that I think that we've done this where I would say we're not all in the same time zone, but we are all 5 of us are actually in Europe at least at the moment. So we're doing better than we do sometimes in terms of being spread among many people.
It's fun when Anna is in the US and Izumi is in Japan. That's the math that's going on, organizing things. I do want to point out that we missed your birthday, Anna. So happy birthday.
Yes, it was my birthday Wednesday. I went and got some cake right before the start of the competition. And it was actually very nice because my friends who were at the competition, other journalists and fans, came and had cake with me. And I got some chocolate that I have now in my bag right now, I have chocolate from 5 different countries. It's very exciting. And my friend gave me a history of the ISU, which, is exactly the kind of nerdy figure skating present that I truly love. So I'm carrying a very heavy history of the ISU in my luggage around here with me now.
That's sweet. So yeah, we will see you again for continents. Is that the next live stream?
Youth Olympics might be first. Yes.
We're working on getting some guests for the Youth Olympics that hopefully we'll be able to announce soon. So I think that will be the next live stream. And I don't think we're going to talk on any of our live streams about Canadian or US nationals. And so just to say we are following them. It's not that we don't think they're important. It's just we can only fit in so many.
We can only fit in so many streams. We will have an interview out tomorrow from Izumi about Camden Pulkinnon in the lead up to nationals. So look out for that.
Yes. And thank you again so much to our guest. And Louise, you did not talk too much. We will always invite you back. It was wonderful to have you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And I think we should also copy the list. I think that's a very good thing to prepare. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. I'm ending the stream.